It's now time for our main event with your host, Chris Tetrold Blaine. Welcome to Once Upon a Turnbuckle.
Welcome to another episode of Once Upon a Turnbuckle, and today I get to welcome another special guest, and one again, a fellow Devonian. Big up to the Devonian army, and she is part of the Reach army, the Reach Wrestling Army down here in the southwest. Echo Reed, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. No, it's good to have you. So, taking a little bit of time out of what I know is a busy schedule at the moment, things kind of kicking back off again on the wrestling scene. I think the most natural place to start is going way back to when you first discovered wrestling. Did you grow up sort of with wrestling? Was it a part of your sort of childhood and that?
Yeah, for me it was. I'm one out of 6 kids, but I had 2 older brothers that really loved wrestling, and my granddad used to watch it, so my mum used to bring it in, like my brothers and that. So when I was like old enough to talk about without me being damaged, they would just give me choke slams, everything on the sofa, and then we got a trampoline. It was like constant. But I didn't really understand any of it until I was about 7. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm watching now. Now it makes sense what they're bullying me.
Cool.
So they're getting it from this. And I remember I got interested in it, and they were like, no, you're not watching the new stuff. You're going to watch all the old DVDs back and watch the Attitude Era. So I got really into like Jeff Hardy, like Edge, all that stuff really early on.
Okay.
Because like, our favorite like WrestleMania was WrestleMania 21. We just thought it was awesome, like just a really cool card. There was no bad match, and we loved it. We used to watch it all the time. And that, and like SummerSlam 2001 as well, constant, always on repeat. So we used to just rewatch the same match and just copy it, drive my mum crazy. My little sister hated it. She'd like, don't even touch me. I'm like, okay. But she was the only one I could pick on because I was a small one. She was younger than me. So I was like, I only have one younger sibling. You're going to take some rubbish because I can't do it to anyone else. They're all bigger than me. But so, yeah, loved it since then.
So the warning that WWE always used to put out, which they probably still do it, please don't try this at home, didn't mean anything to you. So,
I don't think it meant anything to anyone. Kids always try. You find them in a park, just like casually put like Walls of Jericho on. Like they're always doing something. Yeah.
Otherwise, there would be no backyard wrestling. I know that was a massive thing back along. So.
Gotta copy
it. Cool. So it was very much the Attitude Era that that kind of hooked you in, I suppose. What was were there any particular moments, any particular stars? I mean, you mentioned Jeff Hardy there. Was there anything like he did or any others that really sort of got you in, like, yeah, actually, I love this?
I am a really big fan of Rey Mysterio. Like most of the moves I do, I've gotten from him. I think he was really cool. And like the whole like underdog story that he had at the time is one of the first people to do the whole, I'm actually quite small, but I can still be a heavyweight, and you can still get in the ring with these big people that are like twice his size and twice his weight, and it's like convincing. And like then even as a kid, I was like, this is amazing, because I knew I wasn't going to be very tall. Even as a kid, I was like, yeah. I've got a very short dad, and I've got a very short mum. Only one of us is tall, and his dad was tall. So I was like, okay, there's no hope for me. So I was very intrigued by him and Jeff, and like I just thought everything they did as a smaller guy in the ring with a bigger guy, I just always thought it looked amazing because they made both of them look super cool. I was like, this is like blowing my mind, and I used to love it.
I remember growing up with, it's just sort of showing a bit of an age gap here probably. So I grew up with the early 90s, sort of late 80s, early 90s stuff. So when I remember first watching Rey Mysterio when he was in WCW in about 96, they had the cruiserweight division, so they kept the small guys together, and it was really sort of, they stepped away from that very, very few times to have them in there against the bigger guys. But then when he went to WWE, it was like he was in there with anyone. And I think, that's where he really got taken seriously. I think the lines really blurred then, didn't they, in terms of the sort of the weight classes.
What happens? If it works, it works. If it doesn't. Thankfully, it worked.
It did. So, so aside from being taken out by your brothers and sort of being given a bit of a baptism of fire at home, when was it that you decided you wanted to be a wrestler yourself, and sort of how did you go about that at the time?
I was always like tossing and turning what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I was 1 minute, I when I first started getting old, I wanted to be a Power Ranger because
Of course.
really wanted to be the yellow one. I was like, yeah, I want to be a Power Ranger. That's so cool. Realized it's not real. I was like, oh, can't do that then. Then I went from like being wanting to be a teacher, a singer. I wasn't any good at those things. And it wasn't until I was about like 16, like just finishing up in school, that I was like, what is the harm in trying it kind of thing? Like, is there a school nearby? Where would I go? And I grew up in like Cornwall. So I like grew up like just like on the outside of Plymouth and grew up in Callington, which is like just over the bridge. So I would like search up schools, like the nearest one was in Torquay, but I also didn't know how to get to Torquay. So I booked a week in Norwich for a mixed camp, but it wasn't until like a year after, and I was kind of like itching to just get started straight away. And it wasn't until I was trying to lose weight. I was a little bit of a chubby kid, so I was going to the gym in Plymouth because I started going to college in Plymouth, and I saw a sign for a wrestling show in a walkabout, and it was an over 18 show, and I was 17, and I was like, well, I can't go in. If I remember the name, I can see they have like a page on Facebook and drop my message.
Yeah.
So I remember like messaging them and being like, to Reach Wrestling, like, do you guys have a school? Like, I've never didn't know there was wrestling in Plymouth. I'd be interested in trying out. And they're like, funny enough, we've got an open day early March. Do you want to come and attend? I was like, okay. So I showed up, and I was like thinking maybe there'll be a bunch of new people there, it'll be fine. It was just me and this kid who was also starting on the same day, but he'd already done like wrestling elsewhere.
Okay.
So he was a beginner.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh God, I look like an absolute idiot because I don't know anything other than what I've seen on TV. Like, I can do an RKO, but that's not going to help me today, is it? So I was like, okay. And I got in, and it was like forward rolls, like conditioning. And I had Jason King screaming in my ear, telling me to quit. And I was if I wanted it or not. And I was like, why am I here? But I was also really enjoying it. So I was like, I don't understand what's happening. But I didn't do terrible. I wasn't great, but I didn't do terrible. So I was like, I went back and saw my brother because it's his birthday. Like, the one excuse I had to not go to his birthday was it's his 21st. And he was like, what are you doing? I was like, wrestling. And he's like, fair enough excuse. Tell me how it goes. And I met him out that night, and I just showed him everything I learned. And he was like, okay, that's cool. I was like, but now I want to know more. So I kept going back, and they kept trying to make me quit because there's only 2 girls other than me. So they're like, we'll see if this one sticks, and if she does, then we've got something good here.
Yeah.
Kept drilling it into me. I'm like, I don't want to let you win. I'm quite stubborn.
Yeah.
Growing up with a lot of siblings, I'm quite stubborn. So I was like, no. And I keep coming back. And then I did that week in Norwich. And suddenly I had a lot more confidence in myself, so that I actually started doing better. Because I did a mixed camp. There was like a mixed camp and a women's camp. But I didn't want to go by myself, so my brother.
Okay, cool.
Did the mix, but I was the only girl there. And I was like, I stood out. But I was very like nervous and shy at the start of the week, and my brother got injured, so I was stuck by myself in the end. So I was like, I'm gonna have to talk to people now, else I've got no one. I'm alone for a week, and like that's what kind of brought out my real drive for wrestling. Okay, now I really want this. I'm gonna give it like my best shot.
Yeah, that's quite cool, because I've spoken to a few guys, sort of like the old school guys from you know that started wrestling like the 60s, 70s, early 80s, and it's the same principle, is that they really, when you first start training, they put you through the mill to see if you come back. So it's nice to see that is still part of it. You know, it's not. Yeah, it's not so much. You know, I know wrestling scene has changed, you know, such an amount in like the last 20 years or so even. But the way they kind of integrate you into the sport is still, they've got their sort of the old school mentality sort of thing. But so how long were you training for then before you actually got your first sort of tryout in the ring, you know, properly in a match?
I started training in March. I went to Norwich in August, and I came back, and they had their first like academy show, so their first set of students on a show was in that September. I remember we all sat down, so I had a month back from that Norwich show before the show aired, and they were like, today as well, the plan for the next show will be this, this, and this. And they were like, Echo, you're on. And I was like, okay.
It's a bit real now.
Yeah, I was like, oh God. So that was 6 months in. The show wasn't until December, just to make sure people had like a gap, so they kind of wanted to see more. So 9 months in, I had my first match, and it was with a girl called Adira, and like she's terrifying. She was like twice my size. She was literally like, she looked scary.
Yeah.
And like, she was like, even in training, no one wanted to get partnered with her because everyone knew she had like the stiffest shots.
Yeah.
And like, I figured that out because she broke my braces. So
Oh wow. Okay.
it was so hard. I was like,
oh no.
but I'm not gonna cry about it because I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, it's fine, it's cool. I couldn't get them fixed for like 2 weeks. So I like a loose wire just moving around.
Oh no.
And like that match, it wasn't amazing.
Yeah.
But I was really proud of myself because I was so scared right beforehand, and they made us go on pre-main. So I was like second class, and I'm like, I just want to get done with, just want to get it done with. Like I'm panicking, and like as soon as like she went out and started playing my music, I was like, I can't turn back now.
No,
like,
not really.
kind of waiting. So I was like, I awkwardly came out, and I was like, just got straight into it. I was like, as soon as I left that curtain, like full on like wrestler mode kicked in.
Yeah.
And, it's like the best feeling ever.
Cool.
And I remember like seeing my mum. He wasn't chanting the right name, but my sister corrected her. Thanks. She's like, it's not that, it's this. And she was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's my mum, great. She's very loud. You can hear her, but it's the wrong name.
Good impression. Yeah.
It was funny though.
Yeah.
My dad had like no idea what was happening because he knew of wrestling.
Yeah.
But he was like, he never thought I would be the one to try it out. He probably
Sure.
thought like my two brothers would probably try it. And he was just like, what? He's like, just looked confused. He came up to me and went, really enjoyed that. And I watched the video back. I was like, he looks confused the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, oh. He's like, I'll go again though. I was like, oh, thank you.
Oh, there you go. Convert.
Yeah.
So brilliant. So was your parents supportive? Sort of obviously did they think it was something you would stick with, or just sort of a passing phase?
I think my mum probably thought I was going to drop it after a while. My dad probably definitely thought I was going to drop it. But my mum loves it as well. Like, she always goes to the shows with my brothers and stuff. And she's like the loudest one in the crowd.
Right.
She's always one to start in chants. I'm like, oh God, I can't take her anywhere. But, you know, she's like my biggest fan. Like, she always comments on my page and stuff like, yeah, Go's going to get you. I'm like, calm down, Karen. You don't know who you are. You don't know my mother. It's look crazy. So it's like, oh God. But yeah, she loves it. My brother thinks it's really cool. Like, he boasts to his friends about it. I'm like, I don't know your friends, so no, it doesn't mean anything. He's like, yeah, my sister will kick your ass. I'm like, okay, I don't know these people, so I'm not going to do that.
Sounds like a similar kind of story to obviously the one that made it into the film Wrestling with My Family, based on Paige. Yeah, because she obviously grew up, you know, around brothers and her dad, and even her mum that were into it, and that. But she was the one that really broke out and sort of got the big break. So you can live in your own version now.
Even her mum's cool.
Yeah. Have you because sort of training up in Norwich and that's their part of the country, isn't it, up there?
I trained with them, yeah.
Did you? Wow, that's
with them, but Paige, so that was cool.
That's very cool. You know, so I mean, learning almost from the best, aren't you? To be fair,
yeah.
You know, the best.
And they're nice people as well. Like, there's like literally the nice people in the room with them. Like, they're always looking out for you. Like, safety is like the biggest priority there. Like, they're like really cool guys. That's
brilliant. That's brilliant. So let's talk about some of your more sort of memorable moments since you've been wrestling. Is there any matches that you've been involved in aside from your debut one there that hold some special memories for whatever reason for you?
I see one that's quite recent would be, we did like a Unit 10 thing with Reach. We did like videos for YouTube, just like people had some like wrestling content, because obviously doing things with the lockdown, we couldn't have any live shows.
Sure. So
like the verse would just meet up at our unit, like a few at a time. We just filmed some wrestling matches so that there was content for fans to have.
That's good.
And one of them was like a triple threat between me, LA Taylor, and Aurora. And it was for the #1 contendership to face Melanie McKenzie. And at the time, I was very like new, so I was like the newest one then. And I remember that whole match was just so fun, and it was like really cool. And, like, we got so much good feedback from it. And I went over, so I was really excited. I was thinking about in my head was, I'm gonna have a match with Mackenzie. So on YouTube, I'm caught crying like an idiot, and I'm like, I'm so happy. I got turned off, but you know, that happened. But I still was really happy I won the match. So.
Yeah.
I was really chuffed and I was so excited for it.
That's good. So
That was a good place in my heart.
how long have you been wrestling now?
So I started training about 2.5 years ago, and I've had a match a year and a half ago.
Okay, so
but then lockdowns in the middle.
I was going to say, so quite early on in, when you got going, everything locks down. So you obviously had a way of getting, of still keeping into it and getting some content out there, which I thought was so important, especially for the indies. Sorry?
We went up during lockdown, so it was like nice to have them all. Like even during the lockdown, like the first one, we couldn't see anyone. We did like Zoom calls, and we still do like our in-ring like conditioning, so we still do like some workouts together, so that never came out of shape. But it was really nice that we all kept staying in touch, and we like watched wrestling together. Like when WrestleMania came out, we all kind of like sat in a group call, just kind of watched it together, and it was really nice.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Talk a little bit about Reach Wrestling, because I must admit I've lived down here for about 15 years down in Devon. I've been to one wrestling show in Devon, which was Pro Wrestling Pride a number of years ago. So I really didn't know a lot about Reach, and then I had Joel Redman on the show a little while ago.
Yeah, I listened to that podcast. Yeah,
cool. So he was so cool, and it was great to speak to someone obviously who has been on the big stage with like WWE and NXT and that, but having those roots here in Devon and being really proud of the local wrestling scene. And he mentioned Reach, and off the back of that, I am coming to see you guys. I've actually got tickets to a show in Tavistock.
Oh, that'll be a good
October.
one.
So are you at that one? Do you know?
I'm not sure yet. All I know so far is it's going to be Doug versus Joel. Should be a really good match.
Yeah.
I'm going to be watching that either way. So
yeah. That was the one of the main draws. I wanted to, after speaking to Joel, I did want to get down to see whatever show I could, and then they announced that, and I was like, yeah, I got to see that.
Yeah, no, a great match.
So talk about your experience with Reach. Sort of who is it that you mainly trained by, or who have you worked with? Have you got any like really close friends in there that you tend to sort of work with most often?
So we're trained by Jason King, Grayson Reeves, and now Eddie Ryan as well, which is really cool because before, for like a year and a bit, I was there. It was only Grayson and Jason, which was really hard to say, apparently. And after these lockdowns, they've got Eddie Ryan as a third coach, which is really cool having all three of them because they all teach like different things. It's like all of them merged to one makes them so much better. I'd say like closest friends there would probably be a bunch of the guys. Like they're all like really funny. So I'd say like LA Taylor is really good, and like she always like dishes me out for promotions. Like, you want a good match, put me in with her, and I'm like, yes, because it's like the easy story. Like she's 6 foot tall and she's blonde and she's massive compared to me. I'm 5'3", so she stands out. And it's like the whole like David versus Goliath story. Like you can go either way depending on what you want, and like people are always invested in it because they think, oh, this bitch is gonna kill her. Yeah. And I'm like, no. I always love having a match with her. Match with Aurora is always good. There's only 4 women down here, and I'm only getting to face Ruby tomorrow, which is gonna be really exciting. Which I've never done a face-to-face match before, so I'm looking forward to trying that out. Cool. And then other guys, like I really like John Sparks. He's 21 and he's just got like the old school wrestling vibe. Okay. And I love it. Like him and like a guy called Toby Valentine. They love like the old school wrestling, like proper like 80s stuff. Cool. And they love Ric Flair, like Rick Rude, all that stuff. They love it. And like it shows because like they do everything so clean, and I'm like, how do you do it so well? Like, can I do it that well, please? Cool. And like those two are like both so young, and they've got so much potential. And I think out of the guys in the academy, out of the guys like the men, those two are definitely going to go far, I reckon. Awesome. And it is so great to see. And I see there are some of the guys, I don't watch the current stuff all that much, but I know that there are, a couple of tag teams and that out in like AEW that are really holding the old school. I call it old school. It's what I grew up with, the 80s stuff. Yeah. that's not flippy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think there are two trends going on at the minute. You've got the real sort of current, like I can only refer to as the current product, and you've got the stuff that is still rooted in the golden era, as it were. Talking about your kind of main inspirations and your persona in the ring, is there anyone in particular that has inspired or shaped sort of who you are in the ring?
Obviously I mentioned Rey Mysterio before. Like I loved his moveset. I just thought like it always stood out compared to most people because it was something different at the time.
Yeah.
But like I'd say like women's wise, I always thought Natalya was amazing. Like she didn't look like anyone else. Like her and Beth Phoenix were like two like proper strong women compared to everyone else that's on the roster at that time.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that went in bikinis every week. And I was like,
Yeah.
I like these two. Because those two could literally hit anyone and I'd believe it.
Yeah.
Because I love that stuff. And then when they brought in like Paige and AJ Lee, I was like, okay, now it's getting good. I actually want to watch women's wrestling. So I say like those four women like really like shaped what I wanted to do if I was ever a wrestler.
Cool. Yeah.
So I want to be. I'm not convincing anybody against the man, but I want to be one day. So I want to be as strong as I can get so that I can be as good as them, kind of thing.
Yeah. So obviously, when you grew up, the stuff you grew up with, like the Attitude Era, their depiction of women's wrestling was obviously a lot different than what it is now. I mean, you can call it wrestling. They were really there for one thing, which was great for a certain age group of men and women at the time, I suppose. But kind of going into it now, and this kind of women's revolution that's been going on for a number of years now, do you feel it yourself that it is taken a lot more seriously, even, you know, not just in the bigger promotions, but in the indies as well? You feel it's sort of bled down into that?
I think with them starting like the women's like revolution, like them like building it and finally like making them seen as like athletes, I feel like people are actually excited to see women's wrestling again.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like, oh, look, some tits are on the screen. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And it's like now they're like, oh, these two girls are gonna kill each other, and they're excited for it, which is what I love to see. It sounds weird, but I love it. So as soon as they started doing like the Four Horsewomen and like all that stuff, I was like, finally, I can actually watch men's wrestling and not be like, oh, kind of like they finally built it enough that it works. Yeah. And with the indie scene right now, there's so many girls, especially in the UK, that are literally smashing it, and like. I just want to wrestle. I want to wrestle as many of them as possible because like they're all like really young, they're all really hungry, and it just like seems like a really good vibe to be around. Yeah, and I just want to get involved. Cool.
And it was all the good thing that I can see again, really from a distance here. You don't get the gimmick matches that you used to get with women's wrestling. I mean, there wasn't many straight just. 1-4 matches back then. They had to be some kind of stipulation, which
I think stupid, like bikini match. Or,
why? I mean, you knew why.
Or something.
Yeah.
They got save the head match. Like that was right because they worked hard for that just to get a spot.
Yeah.
On the card. So I was like, I'll take that one. I just don't want to see two girls in a bikini smashing around. Like,
just for the hell of it.
Yeah, just for the sake of it. Like, ain't interested in me. Like little girls want something to look up to. And they ain't looking up to that.
Exactly. I think that's probably it's really going to shape the future of women's wrestling as well. That youngsters who grow up and want to get into it, a bit like yourself now, have got those guys up there, those girls up there to look up to, and they are setting a great example rather than I'm going to be up there in a bikini contest or something one day. That's really what I want to aspire to. It's talking about then moving on to your sort of main vision, your main goals. What is if you could pick out or imagine a crowning moment, what would it be for you? If you could achieve anything in wrestling.
My main, I don't care what the scene is at the time. My dream has always been WWE. If I go to AEW or TNA like that in the future, I'll be happy because I've done something, and it's like my work's being considered to be good enough to be on like TV. So I'll be excited, but my main goal, like it's like the childhood dream, isn't it? To be on like a WWE stage, WrestleMania moment. That is like that would be a dream come true. I don't think anything will top that in my life if I ever get it. Yeah. So like, if I ever end up there, then I've like achieved everything I want to achieve. I'll happily retire. Like I've done it now.
That's
I can't top it. Can't get any better than this. I'm happy. Take the belt off me. It's fine.
That's the secret, isn't it? Is knowing when to stop. And I think that's why a lot of a lot of the guys I grew up with, unfortunately, I end up losing respect for because they just cannot seem to get out of it. Could be
it's like you're not in your peak anymore.
exactly, and there's one glaringly obvious one, and I hate to trash him at all because he's still one of the biggest ones ever. But Ric Flair, I just felt should not have been in the ring. You know,
it was a really heartwarming like match, and it will always be iconic. But he was like, he should have retired a bit early, just so
exactly.
Be a bit better. Like it's memorable the way that would have been given, like no matter the time.
Yeah,
but he'd been a little bit younger, and it would have been so much better.
Yeah,
people would love it either way. He could have been 80, and they'd be like, "Yeah."
I know he'll always have that draw. It's not the Ric Flair that I grew up with. I think that last match he had with Sting on the last Nitro, in my opinion, probably should have been it.
That was good. That was really good.
It's a great closure. When he went back to WWE, I mean, I wasn't really impressed with what he did then. Unfortunately, what they did with him anyway. So yeah, sort of hearing that.
Like he was great back in the day, and they keep bringing him back. And I'm like, he used to be. He still looks great. He's still in great shape.
Yeah. It's just. It's not. It's not as believable anymore, is it? Really, when you've got someone like that, you could imagine that he really was taking these guys apart when he was back in his, like early 30s or whatever.
He would have ruined it. But it's like different now. Like, these guys are so much better than. It's like, oh,
really,
like, and it's like, all right then, okay.
Yeah, but I get it. They've gone through a real kind of, some kind of rebirth, I think, in the last few years, and they haven't got as many names at the top to drag it through now. I mean, Roman Reigns finally is in the position I think he should have been in a number of years ago, but they're still relying almost on these old names, bringing them back to kind of keep the fans in.
They don't use a lot of big guys anymore. They use like a lot of like in the middle. They're not quite small. They're built, but they're not as big as Triple H was back in the day, or Batista. There's like no one like that other than like Reigns now and McIntyre, and they're finally like using them.
Yeah. What's the challenge with you then on sort of the style being more that the more sort of lightweight, the athletic, acrobatic, however you want to describe it, compared to back in the day when it was mat holes, a lot of kind of rest points during the match, a lot slower pace. What's the pressure on you guys then to sort of keep that pace up now when you're in there?
People like seeing like mat-based wrestling. They just don't want to see it every match. Like it's good to have at least one match on a card that does that style, so that it's not forgotten, because it is great to see, because no one really does it anymore. There's some guys in like the UK and like America, wherever they are, some of them are really good at that stuff. Like they can showcase that, but people kind of like oversee it because they want to see like Will Ospreay do a flip or Ricochet jump off something, which is cool. Yeah, you don't want to see it every week because it kind of ruins it, kind of stuff. Yeah, like for me, I don't do anything I know I'm not any good at, so I can't do a stolen suplex because I'm tiny and I'm not very strong, so I'm not going to be like, I'm just wiggle something because I'm not going to look great, and I know someone else will do it better. Whereas like I kind of do a mix. Like I do some grounded moves that have been done like back in the day, but I also do some moves that are a bit more modern, so that people can have a bit of both. Yeah. Because people that are like, oh, wrestling's dead now, I want to see all the cool flips and all that stuff. I'll give you one, but I'm not going to do the whole match like it, because I don't want to die. I'll land on my head. And I don't trust myself not to go, look. No. I want to break my neck at the age of 20.
No, probably not a good springboard for the rest of your career, is it? No. I
don't want to be in a wheelchair. I want to live a little.
Also, you don't want to have a match that's just full of spots like that, because it just looks too rehearsed as well.
It's like, I like AEW, like they've got some really good guys on there, but there's not a show that doesn't have like a suicide dive or some massive so I'm like, well, I see it every week now. See, it's not as much of a surprise, or it's not as like exciting, because you don't expect it. Whereas like now I'm like, well, I'm going to expect it at least once in the show, because it happens. It's not spontaneous. There's like one guy that'll do it here and there. I'm like, yes. Yeah. But, like it's very like rare in women's division now, which is I like to see people are doing it a bit more. Just jump on someone. It's fun, just yeet. But no one will do it. No.
Who are the women's wrestlers that you watch nowadays? Is there anyone in particular that you're sort of a great fan of?
I didn't hit my Millie Mackenzie max in the end because of COVID. I really wanted to have it because she's like the best woman in the country, I think. Like, there's obviously girls in NXT UK that are really good, but in my opinion, she's like the top. I just think she's great at everything. Like her, I would love to have a match with like, oh, what's her name? Kaylee Ray. I was like, what's her last name? I know it's Kaylee. I can't remember her last name. I was like, idiot. But she's been great for years. Like, finally now she obviously had that push for the title, and I was like, I actually believe it because she's been good for so long that it's like I can believe that she's had the title that long that no one can beat her. And like, she's awesome. And like, there's a few girls in the indie scene right now that I'm like, they have like so much potential to be great if they just keep doing what they're doing. Like, they're gonna get so much more match experience, and like they're gonna get over. And it's like people are gonna be so excited to see them. And I'm like, please, okay.
And with the sort of going back to what you were saying, your goal to obviously, you know, have that WrestleMania moment with WWE, do you feel there's a lot more opportunity, especially in this country now, to achieve that with places like NXT, and I mean the plethora of indie promotions that are out there? Do you think it's a lot more you can sort of carve a path, you know, to that goal a lot more than you used to be able to?
I think it's easier for women to get signed than it is for men because there's not as many women doing wrestling as men want to do it, because men grow up watching and they like young to be wrestling. So they'll try so young and they'll go places, but there's so much more competition. Whereas like women's wrestling, there's not as many, but there's also less spots on the card. So it's like competition to get who's going to be on that show kind of thing, because you're only going to get 2 girls on a tag match.
Sure.
But the unfortunate thing, but also a good thing, is COVID. A lot of girls quit because they just didn't really miss it. So they thought like the passion's gone, I'm not going to do it. So there's more spots available, but it's also sad because some people when you want to stay to the mat, you can't do that anymore because they hang up their boots.
Sure.
But like,
good for
it's
you,
like
though.
easier now, especially with like WWE doing more tryouts. I think that people are going to get seen more.
Yeah.
And they give more opportunities, which is nice to see. Like people that you will see on a show like once a year because they're traveling so much are finally going to get like recognized, and it's like really cool.
Yeah. Oh, cool. No, well, you know, I'll be watching to see your name up there in lights on the Titantron if they still got that. I don't even know if that's still a thing now, but so it was back then. If you could pick one person then to have that WrestleMania moment with, past or present, who would you pick to be against?
You would have to be one of 3. It would have to be like either Natalia, Lisa, or Paige, because those 3 are like my favorites growing up. I would love to have like a match with any of those 3. Probably the most common option would probably be Natalia because she's the one that's still going. Like, also she's injured right now. But if I had like a match with her before she retired, I think that would be like dream match done. That'd be amazing. I'd be like, I'll go down, put me in a shop for you, I'm done. Cool.
Don't even mind about the result.
I'll tap it away. I won't sell it. It's fine. I'll do it.
Hey, you know, knowing what they do with these multiple person matches, you know, in WrestleMania history, you could have a fatal 4-way with all 3. I'll do
it. I'll do it. I don't mind.
Just retire that now. Awesome. Cool. This has been fantastic. We'll start to wrap it up a little bit. So if you, I know, again, you know, with the world opening back up again, wrestling shows are getting back out there. Like I mentioned, I'm so excited to be going to my first one in about 5 years. So I can't just blame COVID. That's my laziness not being able to get out. But just give a shout out to sort of some of the shows that you're going to be at, sort of that you've got in your diary at the minute.
So for August, I've got, at this point it would have passed, but I've got EVM tomorrow. I've got on the 15th of August, I've got a Lake Fest show for Southwest Wrestling up in Gloucester, a festival. It's an all-women's show, so I'm really excited to be like a room of girls. I haven't met half of them yet, so that'll be really cool and exciting. I've got a show in St. Austell with OCW on the 28th, and then I can't remember September yet because I haven't been on my mind completely. But I've definitely got something. I think I've got 2, but I can't remember what days they're on.
That's cool.
They're both like, could be either of the 2.
I'm sure they'll be out on your social media, which segues into my next point. So there we go. So where can people find you on social media and follow what you're up to?
I believe Instagram is echo.read.pw, and then on Twitter it's the same, but instead of a dot, it's a underscore.
Cool.
So just type in Echo, you'll probably find it.
Echo Reed. There you go. I'll put your links up as well on the video and the notes on the audio as well. So listen, Echo, thank you so much for coming in. This has been fantastic, and I hope to see you, fingers crossed, in person one day, and and see what you're doing, which would be fantastic. So yeah, all the best out there, and I'll be keeping in touch. I'll keeping up with you, keeping in touch with you, and I implore everyone out there to look up Echo Reed and Reach Wrestling, and they're going to go far. And it's especially if you're in the Southwest. Finally, we've got good wrestling that we can go and see. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been really fun, to be honest.
That's all right. No worries.
I feel like it's like the easiest one I've done so far. I've been able to talk and I ramble a lot. So
oh no, that's cool. That just really suits my style. So, brilliant. Cool. Well, yeah, thank you again. And yeah, I'll guys, check out Echo Reed and Reach Wrestling. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.